Judy Lobianco, a member of the 2018 class of Leaders to Learn From, and president of the Society for Health and Physical Educators, Shape America, will now kick off your leadership experience.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Lobianco. A round of applause. Thank you so much. You're going to get the chance to learn so much more about Judy Lobianco's incredible work supporting student wellness in New Jersey schools later this day. For now, hello, welcome, and good afternoon to Leaders to Learn From 2018. I'm Matthew Sabellis. I'm the Director of Live and Virtual Events here at Education Week. And before we kick off what we believe is going to be a wonderful immersive experience for you guys, I hope to take a few moments of your time to do some housekeeping notes. Many of you have your tablets out, I hope, and your cell phones, right? You're all going to be tweeting and posting today? Well, one way to keep connected is through our Wi-Fi, which is available at the Mayflower Conference Group ID. Go to there and type in Leader 2018. I think you'll see this on most of the slides today, but if not, we'll be referring to this during our breaks, and you'll see the information on here. If you have any trouble connecting at all, please, you'll be able to go to the front desk, and they'll be able to help you. That is the reg desk where you got your badges today. Also on the badges today, you'll see the Wi-Fi information in the upper part of your front of your badge. Education Week seeks to constantly improve our live event quality, and we need your input to do this. To achieve this goal, last year's feedback was used to develop this year's program. Now we're a two-day affair, and we're grateful for your feedback on that. Please fill out your survey online this year at leaders.edweek.org/2018eval. That's 2018 EVAL, and we will base next year's program on the feedback you give us now. We encourage all of you to use the hashtag, which I think you'll also find on your badge, Leaders to Learn From. That is at the bottom of most of the slides in the presentations. We want you to be tweeting today to let everyone know you and your colleagues were here when it happened. For those of you who are Instagram folks, we want you to give us a follow on @EdWeekEvents, and we will be uploading pictures throughout the day. In fact, I believe Rachel's already been doing some of that already, so we want to encourage you to see if you can find yourself and share with your friends. So we have an exciting agenda today and one tomorrow as well, full of learning and networking here in this room at the Mayflower Hotel in Washington, D.C., and upstairs where we'll be heading at 2:20 p.m. to meet the leaders that you're about to meet on stage in small groups. For our audience members watching on the live stream, hello, how are you today? We'll be taking in other sessions for you and speaking engagements that we have queued up. As you may have already seen, we also have a digital networking guide. So in your email this week, you should have received a link to this. It will be downloadable at this URL. That's leaders.edweek.org/2018guide. On the screen in this URL, you'll go there and you'll find names, titles of those who are here in attendance. This includes some of our Leader to Learn From over the previous 5 years. Some of these leaders are here with us today. They've just been spending the morning together at an alumni breakfast and sharing their ideas and thoughts with Education Week's editorial staff. If you are here, if you are one of our Leader to Learn From alumni, I'd like you to please stand so we could recognize your contributions. Who do we have here today? Everyone, if you could join me. Welcome. Hey, Dennis. Howdy. Hey. We'll see you guys throughout the next 2 days. They'll be joining you guys as part of your conversations and part of your networking. Also, during the networking breaks, you'll have the opportunity to connect with them one-on-one. You'll be able to also meet them in sessions. At 3 p.m. today, you'll be able to meet Julio Cesar Contreras for his session on supporting principal instructional leadership. At 4:15, you're going to be able to meet 5 other leaders from the past that have joined us, and we have been able to recognize and celebrate their work. Today, they will be joining us at the closing keynote for today at 4:15 back in the Grand Ballroom to share their district leadership successes. I'd like to take a moment now, if I may, to thank our sponsors. Without the support of these organizations, this event and so many of Education Week's other outstanding events would simply not be possible. And we're excited this year to be able to share their industry perspectives with you during the next 2 days. When I call out your organization's name, if you are here representing that organization, it would be great if you could take a moment and stand so people know where you're seated. Today's leader sponsor is Waterford Institute. Today's diamond sponsors include Renaissance. If you have Renaissance here, thanks. Scholastic Education, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt. Our gold sponsors include Curriculum Associates, Corwin, New Teachers Center, and Second Step by Committee for Children. And our event sponsor today is for today and tomorrow is New York City Leadership Academy. I'd also like to thank several of our returning sponsors. We want to give special thanks to Waterford Institute, Scholastic Education, and Renaissance, who have supported this important work for many years. Today's event is not possible without these folks and without this support, so thank you so much to every single sponsor today. I'd also like to bring to your attention something that I hope you all had the chance to see during our coffee registration break at the beginning today, which is to the first ever Leaders to Learn From bookstore and book signing, thanks in no small part to Corwin. And in particular to Katie Stoddard, who has worked with me for months now on this. So thank you so much, Katie, for making this keynote very special indeed with John Hattie, and now you're another keynote that'll be joining us, Peter Dewitt. If you were in the Hall of Leaders outside the ballroom in the back there over there, this morning you'll have seen their bookstore featuring publications from both Peter and John. These books will also be available for purchase tomorrow in the same space in the breakfast, which will be holding bright and early at 7 a.m., which I know you're all excited about. And tomorrow during the coffee and networking break. So we're going to be having a networking break tomorrow afternoon, later in the morning, pardon me, and John Hattie will be signing copies of his books then on the second floor by the breakout session rooms. Be sure to purchase your books ahead of time and get them signed while you're here. It is now with great pleasure that I get to introduce to you Education Week's new editor-in-chief, my boss, Scott Montgomery. Scott, please come to the stage.
I asked for the biggest picture they could find. Good morning and welcome. I'm a new face to most of you. I met a few folks this morning, but I do want to introduce myself. My name is Scott Montgomery. I'm the new editor-in-chief of Education Week, and I arrived just last summer. But I have to tell you, I am truly excited. I have been looking forward to this day, truly since my first day at Education Week. I want to take a quick moment for those of you who are with us on live stream, if you're watching on your phone or tablet or any of those things. Hi, welcome. We're glad to have you with us. I can't promise you won't miss some things, but we're going to do our best to keep you engaged all the way through. You know, for me, it's kind of impossible to ignore the moment we're in as we gather for this annual conversation about great leadership. We recently had students get up and walk out of school. And we have teachers doing the same thing. Now, as a journalist, I have to tell you that I'm not especially uncomfortable in not quiet times. It's kind of what we live for. But, you know, the truth is that in my new role, in my new proximity to the professional education community, I can't help but feel a sense of investment now in this moment, a kind of a stake. And as I look out into this hall and I see all of you sitting here, I see you are the people who are charged with not just holding things together, but making it work, and making it work well, no matter what moment we're actually in. And I find myself thinking over and over again, I have one question. I just can't get it out of my head. Are you guys okay? Are you doing okay? I feel like we should have Advil dispensers at your tables this year. And I don't mean to make light. What I do want to do, though, is express my genuine appreciation and respect for the work you do and how hard it is. You know, I read recently, somebody was writing about Parkland, and one of the points somebody made was that if you're wondering how these kids have done what they've done, or maybe more accurately, how they learned what they learned to do what they've done, the answer is actually pretty simple. It's public schools. And, you know, you may not agree with the point they're trying to make, but it's been a remarkable expression of civic engagement and social leadership by a group of teenagers. And if you firmly set politics aside, I think there is an awful lot in what's happened that people like you should feel very good about, even if it's a bit unsettling. Now, I say all of this simply to make the point that this event, these next couple of days, I kind of think they're coming at a good time. We're here to learn and to affirm. And I don't think it could happen for a more deserving group of people than you folks right now. So, here's what you can expect. Over the next couple of days, you are going to meet these 12 exceptional leaders. You're going to connect with them. You're going to spend time with them. And these are folks that the Education Week readers and editors and reporters have identified as our leaders to learn from for 2018. Now, I just want to be clear that we all know that there are leaders at every table at this event. And we want to make sure that you all understand that this is a conversation that involves you all. Together, you're going to share actionable strategies. You're going to learn leadership skills. You're going to talk about practical approaches to solving problems, to improving schools and supporting educators and students. And like our new class of leaders, you're here to share your experiences. Each of you has a level of experience and a level of expertise that is going to be invaluable to the people sitting next to you. And I hope that you consider this your invitation to dive in. We don't do shy here. We want to hear from everybody all the way through. So, I have some brief notes of logistics. Lunch. In a few minutes, we will be dismissing tables in small groups. You'll be going back out the doors to the hall where there will be a buffet. Get your food, come on back in and have a seat. We'll resume, I think we said about 12:45. The event will sort of gear back up again. And one other thing I want to mention. You'll notice on your tables there are little cards. They have words on them. And those are intended to simply be conversation starters. They won't be on the test. You don't have to use them, but they can be helpful in getting you all to break the ice and begin to meet one another. So with that, I would just like to say, welcome to Leaders to Learn From for 2018. I hope you have a great experience and enjoy your lunch.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Washington, and welcome to the 2018 live edition of Education Week's Leaders to Learn From. As you've just seen in this quick video, we have now profiled more than 80 exceptional school district leaders from around the country. This is our 6th year, and we're just really proud to be able to continue this body of journalism and this live event that brings all of you together to listen and learn from one another. I'm Leslie Maxwell. I'm an assistant managing editor at Education Week, and I'm the executive project editor for Leaders to Learn From. Over the last several months, it has been my privilege to get to know the amazing stories of the 12 leaders you're going to be meeting today and tomorrow. After poring over hundreds, literally hundreds of nominations that came in from readers and education organizations and districts around the country, our team narrowed down a list of finalists to consider for leaders this year. Our reporters went out and did lots of interviews and vetting and talking to many, many people about the work and the leaders that we ended up selecting for this year's class. And so the result, of course, is this select group of educators who are a testament to how creative and committed leadership in our school districts is essential to ensuring high quality teaching and learning. So today I am really, really proud to introduce you to these 12 extraordinary leaders. What's so striking about this class of leaders is that they all have a really powerful sense of purpose and resolve in the work that they do. Regardless of the districts they work in and their areas of expertise, they are all single-minded about improving the lives of the students and the communities that they serve. But perhaps even more importantly, these leaders are risk takers. They're not afraid to fail, and they're willing to do the work to get their teams, their schools, and their communities to buy into what they're doing. They also really understand that great ideas can come from anywhere. They turn to their teachers for insights and advice. They ask parents for help. They listen to what students really think and act on it. And they reach out to partners, all in the service of children. So the next 2 days are really about celebrating and learning from the extraordinary work that these educators are doing every day in public schools. Later this afternoon and tomorrow, you'll have a chance to join the 2018 leaders off stage to dialogue with them about the work that they're doing and the work that you're doing in your districts as part of our Follow the Leader agenda. Take that time to engage and connect, to bring home new ideas and new contacts that can make a difference for the students you're serving. So I invite you all to settle in and soak in the experience, the wisdom, and the lessons from these 12 remarkable educators. But first, to tell you more about why Education Week created this singular special report, I'd like to introduce our host for today and tomorrow, who's also my boss, the President and CEO of Education Week, Michele Gibbons.
Good afternoon. And since Scott, my colleague, opened the door by commenting on his photo, I must comment on my photo. And here's the comment. I want you to know that I have more than just this jacket and more than just this blouse. You know, you have to be able to laugh at yourself, right? So, welcome again to Leaders to Learn From, now 6 years old. I do believe we have ourselves a first grader. Leslie asked me to tell you why we created Leaders to Learn From. I'm going to do better than that. I'm going to tell you why we get out of bed in the morning, about our purpose, and why we do what we do at EPE, which is the nonprofit that's behind Education Week and Leaders to Learn From. EdWeek was created more than 30 years ago, almost 40 now, with a singular vision and mission. We believe that all children should have access to a high-quality pre-K-12 education. And our mission is to help policymakers and educators like you make informed decisions about public education policy and practice. And how do we do that? Well, we do that by providing nonpartisan, authoritative news, analysis, research, and other services through Education Week, through Ed Week Market Brief, through the Education Week Research Center, through Top School Jobs, and much more. Leaders to Learn From gives our newsroom the opportunity to connect with our audience, to connect with you, to find and to elevate school district leaders who are doing really extraordinary things to improve public education, things that we think others will want to know about. And that, quite simply, is why we created Leaders to Learn From at EPE. If you'll indulge me just a little bit, I want to thank my colleagues at EPE who have brought this year's Leaders to Learn From to life. This is a year-long endeavor, starting with our call for reader nominations. Leslie already mentioned we get hundreds upon hundreds of nominations. Every part of our organization is involved. It's a real team effort at EPE. And my guess is that the leaders you will hear from later today will likewise find a way to acknowledge their teams and how important they are to the work that they do within their own organizations. Before I share a few words about this year's leaders, I'd like to give you some food for thought based on some research about leaders and teamwork that I came across in Harvard Business Review, one of my favorite reads other than, of course, Education Week. I bet we all know that teams made up of people with different skills and perspectives almost always produce greater results than the sum of individuals acting alone. But maybe you didn't know this, that teaming great talent, together acts as a force multiplier. And here's what I mean by that. A 5-member team made up of highly committed and skilled people can produce 16 times as much as the sum of 5 average people working individually. So let me share an example with you from outside of education. It's important to look outside of education from time to time. How many of you are familiar with NASCAR? Okay, few hands in the house. So you will know the name Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch. For many years, Kyle Busch's pit crew was considered the best. His crew is a team of all-stars that trains together all year long. A standard NASCAR pit involves 73 separate maneuvers, like changing 4 tires or refueling. Busch's pit crew can complete a standard pit in how long? Who has a guess? Oh, who read that article? Okay, you were close. 12.12 seconds. That's amazing. Who said that? It's amazing. You're a winner. I don't know what you get. You're a winner. But think about that. 73 separate maneuvers in 12.12 seconds. If you remove one crewman and replace him or her, of course, with an average crewman, say a tire changer, it takes 23 seconds more on top of that 12.12 seconds to complete that same pit. Take 2 out and find average replacements for those 2, and it increases further to more than 45 seconds. So a great team, not an average team, but a great team makes a big difference. Perhaps not surprisingly, the same research suggests that great leaders magnify the productivity of their teams. And so, speaking of great leaders, following along with me here, you are about to meet the 12 leaders profiled in this year's report. They come from different walks of life, but they share a common ethos that schools must deliver on the promise of putting all students on a solid path to successful and fulfilled lives. They bring diverse perspectives and experiences and can point to accomplishments in a wide variety of district programs and initiatives, including testing new ways to deal with teacher absences, building a school climate and culture that makes all students feel safe, ensuring student wellness, in part by rethinking physical education, and tapping directly into students' ideas and opinions to shape how their schools should feel and work. Student voice, its power and potential to affect change, is something we're all watching, certainly in the wake of the school shooting in Parkland. So we have an impressive lineup of speakers and attendees this year, including several past leaders to learn from. You will also, of course, hear from some of Education Week's reporter experts. On key issues in the field, along with perspectives from colleagues who create and deliver K-12 products and services. Author Peter Dewitt, a former principal, will offer his unique insights for education leaders. And of course, our featured keynote speaker is John Hattie, author, professor of education, and director of the Melbourne Education Research Institute at the University of Melbourne in Australia. Okay, so let's get on with it. Our favorite part of the program. Introducing you to all of Education Week's 2018 leaders to learn from. It's really fitting that we're going to start the day by meeting a leader who has a profound respect for what the students think about their daily experiences in school and how what they are learning is preparing them for the future. Let's see how student voice makes a big impact on how a superintendent makes decisions about everything from course taking to lunch menus.
I feel blessed to have my voice heard.
Listen to us. We know what we want.
Student voice is when students see a problem and they make an effort to change it and they're heard.
Because if you don't say anything or try to make any change, you won't see any, and it just gets harder and harder in the future.
The student voice, I believe, is the authentic voice.
Hi. Gentle ladies, how are you?
I'm Dr. Malash, and I'm the superintendent. And I'm not in any grade anymore. I just continue to keep coming to school because I really like it. Hi. One of the favorite things that I do in my job is to go out and do town hall meetings. And I do them at all 6 of our secondary schools. Is it different in middle school than it was in elementary school with bullying and that kind of stuff?
The biggest issue, or like the most effective, is probably cyberbullying.
I feel like it falls down to the students to help prevent that.
The principal had said that it's only bullying when it's special needs, which I think
one of the greatest resources that we have, the voices of our children, because they're honest. They're going to tell me what's good. They're going to tell me what's not going so well, and they're going to tell me what it is that they want. So you think we should start at the high school?
Start at the high school and then give all of them some, and then work our way down.
No one wants to pay that much, $500 for a Chromebook.
It's a lot of money, right?
So just don't lose it.
All right, so that's a question that comes up, right? So if I handed you guys a $500 Chromebook and a charger and said, "Give this back to me in June," right? So what do I worry about? Everything. We have to hear that voice, but it can't be the only voice. I'm one person, and we have, well over 1,000 certificated staff members. There's 1,600 plus employees, 11,300 kids. There's a lot of people here on a daily basis. They could become nameless and faceless to most of the district. And again, if these folks didn't do their job, school doesn't open. I think it becomes even more challenging and even more incumbent upon us as the leaders to make sure that there's a face-to-face human connection. Because that's what makes a difference, and that's what we remember.
I got to see you again. You're a lucky day today.
Do you need anything? Can I do anything? What can we do to help things go better, smoother? Tell me what's happening.
Hire a couple more cleaners.
More cleaners. Staffing, right?
We really wants to make connections with people. And he wants to see everyone who's involved with the community be successful.
So it's forcing that conversation. It's pushing that conversation forward. It's allowing ourselves to change for the better so everybody knows what it is to have voice.
You too, guys. That's all you need. Good morning. How are you?
His heart is in Cherry Hill. He grew up in Cherry Hill. He lives in Cherry Hill. He's part of our community.
How are you? It's so good to see you.
Everything
great.
Look at you, always smiling. You make me happy.
And do they know why Kingston is special to you?
They may not. Does anybody know why Kingston is so special to me? Why?
Kingston is maybe special to you because you went here when you were in elementary.
Yeah, that's part of it. I did. Did you know that I went here?
But I think the thing that's continuing to make us great, honestly, is the human factor. This is the mission statement for the Cherry Hill Public Schools. We shall provide all children with an education that develops open-minded thinkers with the strong academic and interpersonal skills to thrive in an ever-changing world and make it a better place for all. We see this as our primary responsibility as a school district to focus on respect, responsibility, and citizenship of our students and to truly live out this mission.
Hi, I'm Allison Klein. I'm an assistant editor at Education Week, and you've just been introduced to Joseph Malash, the superintendent of Cherry Hill Public Schools in New Jersey. Joe and I have just about 8 minutes to share with you some of the highlights of his work. But fear not, this will not be your last chance to hear from Joe. You'll be able to meet him again shortly during the Follow the Leader breakout session. But as we saw, right, what you're being honored here for today is your work on student voice. And we got a sense of it in the video, but can you just tell us, what does student voice actually mean, and how is it different from just normal interaction with students in the district?
Thank you, Allison. First of all, I want to thank Ed Week and thank you especially Allison and Sweetkar Patel, wherever he is, for putting the video together that he did. Such an incredible experience for me as an individual, the folks in the district, to have the opportunity to be able to see the work that we are engaged in as a community, really to be something that's pushing the conversation. Student voice is such a basic thing that we must all take advantage of. And it's not just talking to a kid in a classroom and did you do your homework and that kind of thing. But student voice is, I believe, a basic foundation of what we all need to be as educators listening to. Right? We have the greatest jobs in the world as educators. We get the chance to interact with children on a daily basis. It's the greatest thing in the world. But if we're going to do it and do it well and do it correctly, we need not to just do education and do school to kids or for kids. We need to do it with kids, right? So you need to talk to them through their lens. What's working well? What's not working well? And it has to be purposeful, right? It can't just be me stopping by one of the 19 schools and walking through the hallway and smiling, although those are wonderful opportunities. It has to be purposeful. It has to be set opportunities and set times to sit down with different groups of children and truly get the feedback. Now, one of the things I always caution folks, if you're really going to go down this path to ask children to share their voice, you better be ready to listen, to hear, and then to act. Because one of the worst things that can happen is you ask kids how they feel and what they think needs to be done, and then don't do anything with it.
So on that point, I know you do these town halls regularly with students. What if they bring up something that you don't necessarily agree with? What are the challenges of giving kids kind of that meaningful say in their education?
Sure. So again, there's an authenticity that exists when you speak to children, and it goes down to kindergarten and all the way up to high school seniors. If you ask children and they feel that you are listening, they're going to be honest and authentic. They've been critical. We've had kids be critical of our curricular decisions, critical of the scheduling choices that we've made, and critical of how we've organized activities at the school. Especially over the course of the last 8 weeks, student voice and the way the student voices are expressed is something that's exploded and everybody is talking about. We had a lot of activities that went on, especially at our secondary schools, following the tragedy that took place in Parkland. And because we had internal mechanisms for children to be able to share their voices with teachers, with administrators, and with one another, they were able to plan activities to take place that while they looked different in the different schools, met the needs of the kids. And kids bring up things that you don't necessarily want to hear. You have to be ready to hear them. You have to be ready to act on them after they share them with you as well.
So can you talk about some of the changes that you've made in your district that you might not have made if it hadn't been for student input?
So a big one, about a year and a half ago, we moved to having biology taught as the freshman science class for all freshmen in high school, which was a dramatic shift for our school district. We prepared, we revised curricula, we worked with teachers, and then we sent all these kids in as freshmen in high school, and you had freshmen and sophomores and some juniors who were all taking biology. What we realized as we went through the first marking period is the kids were being prepared in a different way in middle school for what they were receiving in high school. The kids were incredibly critical about the pedagogical decisions that were being made in the classrooms, and it actually impacted us that we went back and looked at how the curriculum was organized and then what we were asking teachers to do in the classrooms on a daily basis. And that's a hard conversation, right? Because you have content area experts that are in the classroom that have been teaching biology for a long time. They know what works, they know what has not worked. But the thing that was missing as we made this big change truly was talking to the kids, right? Because kids that are 15 and 16 years old that are taking this class are being prepared differently than we were back in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s. You know, and again, if we don't ask the children what the impact is on them and how they feel as they're going through it, then education is being done to them rather than with them.
So what is the most surprising thing that you've ever heard from a student in one of these town halls?
Oh, so at the secondary level, I would say the most surprising thing that I ever heard from a child was what did not work for them and why they did not like school. You know, and one of the town halls recently, we had some pretty high-achieving kids in the middle school, and this child who had great grades sat there and said, they don't like school. I don't like coming to school. I don't like being in class. I don't like what I'm doing. You know, and we talked afterwards. There was a follow-up that I had with the principal, that I had with the child, and I had with a couple of the teachers. Because here's a kid that on paper looks like they're doing great. And this kid literally said they don't like school, you know, and that was an eye-opening experience because, again, to sit back and to have that authentic conversation with teachers and with administrators in buildings to take a critical look at themselves and how they are acting and what they are doing is life-changing for children. Because we make a lot of assumptions. And again, if you don't ask the children, we think everything's going well, right? There's a lot of kids on a daily basis, and children, for the most part, are compliant. If we ask them to do something, typically they do, and they perform to that level. But that was one of the most frustrating, one of the most upsetting, and one of the most life-changing things that I've ever heard from a child.
So when does student voice end, right? Is it still useful after kids graduate and leave the district?
Student voice is always useful, and it's one of the things that, again, that we have found as a school district. We've empaneled an alumni association, and I meet with them with this alumni board, kids that have graduated in the last 5, 6, 8 years. And again, one of the things that the kids told us as we met with them last year, they had a direct impact on the change of our mission statement, was about the things that they were missing when they got to college. You know, some of the skills about interaction, some of the skills about advocating for themselves that change how we're approaching the academic, what we're doing academically, and then with interpersonal skills at the high school level. I think we have to constantly listen. You know, as I go around and meet with the custodians and meet with the different folks in the district, I think you have to empower that, right? So the student voice is one of the things that we focus on, but it's also about the staff, and it's about the community members. One of the best times that I've had over the last 2 years is going out and meeting with new families to the community. Right? So we invite people that are brand new and they come to register, you know, and I offer to go in to do a home visit, which is a little off-putting to folks in the beginning, you know, to come out. And I do leave after we spend a little bit of time, but they are honest. This year I've gone back to the same 16 families that I met with last year to say, so what's it look like in the second year? Tell me about your experience as a parent. And again, one of the things that we found as a school district is we were doing really good things for new kids to the schools, but we did not follow up with the parents after the first time they dropped their kids off. You know, so how can we continue to build that community? If we can keep that circle closed, then we can benefit more children and more families and continue to improve.
So it looks like we're just about out of time. I'd like to ask everyone to give Joe one more round of applause.
Listening sessions with his students are a critical part of Molnr's strategy to get the best out of his already high-flying suburban district by elevating the voices of its students in decision-making. Longtime educators, he said, can sometimes get tunnel vision and continue doing things the same way for decades. Joe has remarked, I believe that we need to make sure students' voices, their opinions, their thoughts are shared, and that we actually listen to them. We forget that for kids, this is their one time coming through high school. This is the one experience they have, and we need to ask them what they think. Joe, please come join me here at the podium. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's fantastic. Really appreciate
Let's get our
it.
picture taken.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Perfect. Congratulations again.
Thank
Jill.
you, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Step careful. Thank you, Allison. It's now my pleasure to welcome staff writer Michele Molnr and Mohammad Chaudhary of the San Antonio Independent School District to the stage.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a real privilege to be able to profile Mo Chaudhary for Education Week. He is someone who takes segregation incredibly personally, and his mission in life is to desegregate schools. He's a true champion for equitable education for all. He spent 3 years pushing to desegregate schools in Dallas. Then, about a year ago, he undertook a similar mission in San Antonio as the district's first Chief Innovation Officer. This afternoon, we'll get some insights from Mo into how and why he tackled this incredibly tough issue. Welcome, Mo, and thanks for joining us. Let's start by setting the scene. Would you tell us a little bit about just how segregated and how poor San Antonio is?
Just making sure my mic is on. Oh, yes. So as we celebrate 50 years of the Fair Housing Act, we know there is nothing natural about our neighborhoods. There's nothing natural about them. They were designed. Richard Rothstein has captured that they were intentionally segregated, government-sponsored, and San Antonio is another chapter of that. And so San Antonio, how segregated is it? I mean, the question is, what haven't we done in terms of how we've separated and isolated people in the city? 17 different school districts make up the city, right? I grew up in LA Unified, then was in Dallas. My mayor can't even talk about San Antonio ISD because he has to talk about 17 different school districts. My city council can't even vote properly because they're representing 4 different school districts when they're voting. So 17 different school districts make up the city. My footprint, the median income of San Antonio ISD is $30,000. So in terms of segregation, it is one of the worst forms. By some accounts, if you look at the Pew Research or Richard Florida's research, it is one of the most segregated, if not segregated, cities in the country. And then the last piece I would share is I recently did some back mapping. I looked at 1930s redlining and how it played out with the housing covenants and all of that. And I looked at my attendance zones, and I decided to take the red line zones and overlay it with our attendance zones that we have. And then I fast forward to 2018. They look exactly the same. They have not changed. And then I back mapped it, and I showed that to the Chamber of Commerce recently. To shock them and by design, but at the same time to basically make the case like we haven't changed.
What does that mean for student achievement?
So what that means for student achievement is that we are robbing our students of opportunity and privilege. We are truly robbing them of opportunity and privilege. We are a high poverty district. Our mission will remain doing high poverty schools well. I know that as a product of one, as a teacher of them, as well as running turnaround initiatives, but it is damn hard to pull that off. What that also means is all of my teachers in all my schools are social workers. That's what that means. It means that my students are denied opportunities that come with class that ultimately relate back to what the Coleman report found, and modern day research finds that class brings you educational opportunity as much as we try to decouple those things. So that's what that means.
And you were hired to tackle this problem head on, and you've been at it for 1 year. So tell us what you've been up to.
Absolutely. So, when I landed, I told Pedro Martinez, "Are you going to allow me to disrupt the lines? And are you okay with that?" And he said yes. I don't like the lines either. He's from Chicago. He grew up there, so he understands them really well. And so one of the things that my office oversees is school choice, as well as its brand new attendance or enrollment office, I should say. Attendance is one factor of it. And so what I decided to do is when we are going to roll out school choice, we are going to do it through a controlled choice approach, not going to let the market take over, So that's what we did. We ensured that there were smart set-asides for economically disadvantaged kids. We made sure that we were building schools that were diverse intentionally by design. Just like segregation was intentionally designed to undo it, you have to thoughtfully and in a vigilant kind of way take that on. So that's what we did. We designated several schools as diverse by design campuses. When those schools are fully enrolled, I'm going to have 8,000 kids attending those schools. So that's one thing that we did. The other piece that we also did is redefine what poverty looks like. And this is something that we didn't come up with. I borrowed from the work that Chicago did around its magnets. They worked with Richard Kallenberg to tier out its magnet system. Because free and reduced price lunch, folks, is outdated. It is, we like it because federal dollars are tied to it, but it is a flawed metric around poverty. It is a binary approach. Poverty is much more than that. I can tell you as a teacher, a former teacher, there's a difference between teaching students at the 40,000 cut point versus students living in abject poverty with limited access to social capital. So we decided to do that. We basically created a block methodology that takes our city and our census blocks and breaks it down into socioeconomic blocks. Chicago, I believe, calls them tiers. I call them blocks. Block 1 being my most advantageous neighborhoods or high opportunity areas, as Raj Chetty would define it as, and block 4 being my most disadvantaged neighborhoods where there's less education, less rates of home ownership, higher rates of single-parent households. And so I did that and made sure that as we are beginning to allocate our limited resources, we're going to use school choice to also make sure we allocate seats in that way as well.
How does your work translate to the people in this room and for schools around the country?
So our mission will continue to remain that we are going to do high poverty schools well, and we're going to solve and figure them out. We're going to keep doing that. But if you are in an urban city, in a major city, where affluence is right in front of you every day, right? What is stopping you from pursuing integration other than political will, right? And fears of pitchforks and such. So how does that translate into it is you can pursue it. You are intentionally and consciously deciding not to pursue it, right? You are saying that it is okay, and we're going to try to continue to make separate and equal work. We're going to try to keep trying to do that, and when we know it doesn't. And so it can start with one. It can start with one school. If you are running choice initiatives, are you exacerbating segregation that already exists in the city? Are you doing that? If you are, then you need to reassess that because you're adding to the problem. Or if you are launching new schools and you are going to set enrollment parameters in that schools, how are you designing those enrollment parameters? If you have an attendance zone committee that meets annually like we do, what are you upholding and who's upholding those things? So in terms of how do you translate into that without a court order, there are plenty of ways to do it. And folks are knocking down doors to get into these schools, right? Especially my middle class families who, I just need them to opt into my neighborhood schools sometimes, but their fears, right, as much as they have their progressive values, keep them from opting into those schools, but when I give them a blank canvas, they do opt in, knowing that the school is going to be 50% economically disadvantaged, and a quarter of those kids will come from Block 3 and Block 4 families. So there's nothing stopping you from pursuing it other than wanting to do it and belief that it works.
Well, I'm happy to say everyone will have a chance to follow the leader after this portion of our program and learn more if you're interested from Mo. Please join me in thanking Mo for his great presentation.
Throughout the San Antonio School District, Mohammad Chaudhary can be found juggling what he calls design for diversity, as he focuses on providing students and their families more school choices. As one of Mo's previous supervisors says, he doesn't shy away from tough conversations. The work he's doing is very much rooted in tough issues around segregation, poverty, race, and staffing. He's a consummate student of research and best practices. Mo, please come join me here at the podium for your work in expanding school choice for all students. Congratulations, Mo. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, you can go down this way. Thank you. Thanks, Michele. It's now my pleasure to welcome staff writer Ben Herald and Eileen Owens of the South Fayette School District in Pittsburgh to the stage.
I'm Ben Herald. I'm the technology writer at Education Week, and it is my pleasure to introduce Eileen Owens, who's the Director of Technology and Innovation in South Fayette Schools. And I will say that during my visit to South Fayette, I had a really, really hard time keeping up with Eileen. It's a small campus, but just going from classroom to classroom and building to building, it was amazing how much was happening at any given time. I saw kids in maker spaces, kids coding their own video games, kids starting their own businesses, kids producing their own movies. And it was inspiring. And it was also a challenge to keep my fingers typing as quickly as everything that I saw was happening. But I'm curious, Eileen, when you walk around your campus and building, what warms your heart? How do you know when innovation is happening in your classrooms and schools?
It happens because you see that students are inspired, they're engaged, they're excited about creating and building and making. And really, it's because creativity is the essence of being human, and it's the ability to really have the ability to express themselves. And so what warms my heart is not only do we see students engaged and excited about learning, but we see that the teachers have also taken that role. They're inspired by their students, and they're inspired by the lessons they create, and they are empowered to follow their vision, so they know what that they're doing is right for the kids.
One of the things you're a big proponent of in South Fayette Schools is computational thinking, which you reminded me many times is not the same thing as coding. What's the difference, and what does it look like in the classroom?
Well, computational thinking is the ability to think logically, recursively, algorithmically, to think in multiple layers of abstraction. It also includes human-centered design thinking, the characteristics of successful problem solvers, which is habits of mind. Those are all integrated because computational thinking is the ability to understand human behavior to problem solve and to create systems. And coding is a skill set that we use and wrap within that.
And so if anyone in the room today walked into, say, a first or second grade classroom in South Fayette and computational thinking was happening, what would they see?
Well, if you were in there yesterday, second grade had just finished their version of Flat Stanley. You all know Flat Stanley? But it's a roboticized Flat Stanley. So what they did is they used LED lights, motors, servos. They created paper mache heads and hats for every country. They studied the countries, and then on each panel of the robot, they created a scene which they interacted with. So if you were from France, you saw the story, you heard the story that the students narrated, and then you saw the hand moving back and forth to learn Braille. And then you saw the Eiffel Tower light up. And so you can see how they express themselves. And then each of the students, they were given passports. And they went to each other's country, and then they took a photograph from that country, and that was their postcard that they wrote home about, and they wrote about being in that country. So that's just an example of second grade. You know, in fourth grade recently, we remixed art. We took students' Van Gogh paintings, and they made them light up, or they made a windmill turn. And then as you get further on, they make ping pong launchers, and create video games. And what's really beautiful is you can see at each grade level it increases. In 7th grade, they're making apps with App Inventor. In 8th grade, every 8th grader is taking Python, and they are trying to get off the planet Mars. It's a simulation of the Martian, and they have to program the robot to get away.
One of the things that was really interesting and enjoyable to me as we got to know each other was hearing about your own childhood in a small town called St. Mary, West Virginia. How did your experiences growing up in small town West Virginia lead you into being such a proponent of creativity and creative thinking?
Yeah, I think that I lived in a kind of a magical environment in the sense that we built tree houses all day. We lived in the woods, and we built tree houses, and we created brooms out of honeysuckle and wood and straw, and we put on productions. One of our productions happened to include a spider monkey that
made a flight for freedom during the production. But so we did a lot of very fun activities, but it was all about being creative and play. I think that play is our version of creativity as a child, and we need to continue to cultivate that in our students no matter how old they become.
And you actually got involved in bringing that spirit to education as a parent before being an educator.
Right, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Okay, so when my children first entered school, I was sad because I was an interior designer and I felt that there weren't creative expression in schools. So I started a program called Journeys. And in Journeys, students were able to, they studied archaeology and they studied robotics and they studied architecture. And so we gave kids opportunities to have a non-traditional education. And we involved universities and businesses and experts in the field. We had architects and archaeologists and everyone working with the kids. And the idea was they took an idea, learned about it, and they synthesized it to create a unique product. So we were an all-volunteer staff. We served about 400 students. And it was an exciting time that launched me into education.
And now that you're in the role that you're in South Fayette, one of the things I know that you emphasize is this idea of small bets. What does that mean and why is that so important?
Our whole program was based on Little Bets. It's a book, I don't know if you've read it, by Peter Sims. And the idea is that innovation is an emergent process. We've been doing this for 9 years and people ask, how do you start? And you start with a little bet. It's an after-school program with maybe 8 children. And you look at what your accomplishments are and where your impact is. And then from there you start building it in. So we do a lot of programs like that. We have incubators. Like right now we're doing a machine learning incubator with our students. And we're within a year to 2 years, that will go into the curriculum. But we have after school programs, we nurture, we impact, we see where they're going, and then we take the best stuff, rewrite, and put them into the curriculum. And that's how we grow.
And so for anyone in the audience here who wanted to go back and think about making one of these little bets in their district, what's one very quick piece of advice you'd give to them?
I would say, be courageous, don't be afraid. I think take the thoughts of your students. If you just reach out to your children and say, what would you like to do? They might tell you we'd like to make an app, or they might tell you we want to make a robot. But whatever they want, I think that's where the starting point has to be. And then from there, nurture their growth. And then those students will be your leaders. We use students to become the leaders that help others and impact other grade levels.
Thanks so much. Well, it looks like we're out of time. Let's all give Eileen a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
To fully participate in the future, the argument goes, today's students will need the skills and confidence to understand and interact with an increasingly digital world. Thanks to Eileen, South Fayette has been at the forefront of figuring out what that looks like in K-12. Eileen's ambition is part of her charm. Say the many partners she has enlisted in her efforts. She doesn't worry so much about the practical, said Mark Stellick, the Assistant Dean for Outreach at Carnegie Mellon University's School of Computer Science. She wants to create a vision, then find the people and the resources to make it happen. Eileen, please join me at the podium. I'm very proud of you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Let's get our picture taken. Okay. Great. Thank you again. Pleasure. Yes. Thanks, Ben. It's now my pleasure to welcome staff writer Evie Blad and Judy Lobianco. She's very shy and retiring. Formerly with the South Orange Maplewood School District, to the stage. Since we selected Judy as a 2018 leader, she's taken a similar role in the Livingston Public Schools in New Jersey.
Hi, I'm Evie, and I'm a staff writer for Education Week. And I don't know how this is going to go because Judy's a little shy, so I don't know. Writing this, yeah, we're nervous. Writing this story was actually kind of redemptive for me because my memories of physical education as a child are running about a lap and a half behind my peers when we were running the mile in school. And Judy was very quick to say that kids like me, who are not as confident and skillful, should also have a place in physical education classes, and it's their teacher's responsibility to help make that place. So can you talk about the new way to do PE that engages students regardless of their fitness level, and explain what you mean by that and how you approach it?
Sure. Thank you so much, and thank you to Ed Week. And I just want to say that this is a big moment for my profession, and on behalf of 200,000 health and physical educators all across this country, we're so excited to have a seat at this table. You have no idea. And I think that what you're saying is extremely important. You know, we have to change the narrative about health and physical education and make sure that all of these stereotypes fall away now. And we embrace the fact that student wellness and thinking about the whole child is one of the most important things we can do as educational leaders. So, you know, health and physical educators have had a seat at the table all along, but now it's time for the entire education community to embrace this, right? So forget about those old stereotypes and move into the future and understand that physical educators of today have a huge responsibility. In fact, health educators and physical educators believe that they're the most important thing that goes on in schools, because without a healthy, active child, nothing else matters, right? So this is something they think about their whole life. And they'll think about math and social studies and language arts, but at the same time, the kinds of conversations we're having with them, the fact that they need to be active 60 minutes a day, physical educators take that very seriously, and we're not just there for the athletic, confident, skillful child, because the other 85% of your class needs you too. So what's important is to make sure that you're meeting every child where they are. And it doesn't look like the same ball from the same distance with the same height net. It means what ball makes you comfortable, what distance makes you comfortable, what height of the net makes you comfortable. And in health education in particular, and particularly now in 2018, health educators are having really, really important conversations around the skills necessary for kids to be healthy and well for life.
And some of those skills, some of your instructors told me, transfer into other subject areas, that they can transfer that learning, those social emotional skills they develop through physical education into other classes. So you've got a room full of folks from all different academic areas here. What would you say about why what happens in PE and health classes matters?
Right, so you can't ignore the research. It's out there, and everybody in this room who's a leader understands that something happens to the brain when you are healthy and well. The actual physiological differences that happen in the brain right after you exercise cue us up for academics. And it sounds strange, but 20 years ago I was afraid to say, and no longer I'm afraid to say, that we have a seat at the table in terms of chronic absenteeism. We have a seat at the table when it comes to physical activity, helping us with the problems of student discipline. Kids are more present in school when they are active, 60 minutes a day again. So we need to be able to make sure that as leaders we offer opportunities for physical activity in the classroom, in physical education. I need principals to step into that gymnasium because that's your classroom too. I need health educators to step up. I need us to be the huge culture of the school and to be the heart of the school. You know, everybody doesn't think like that when they think about health and PE. It's just this place where kids are busy, happy, and good. No, there is major instructional gains going on, both in health and PE, and as leaders and as principals, it's your responsibility to get in there and make sure that you're asking kids, what are you learning today and why are you learning it?
To observe in the gym as much as you do in English and math classes. Well, we've talked a little bit about rethinking physical education, but I know that there are some ways that people are changing their approach to health education as well. Can you tell us a little bit about skill-based health?
Sure. So long gone are the days when a health teacher knocks off the lights and does a 3-day film. These days, we understand, right?
They pull out that cart and you know you're going to take a little nap.
I can feel those stereotypes. I feel them, right? Stay with me. We're taking back this profession today, right? So the health teacher is really facilitating conversations among peers about the skills they need, not about the stuff they need to know. This is a world in 2018 where if a kid needs to know something, they're going to go to the phone and find out what it is. I need kids to embrace skills like self-advocacy, good decision-making, analyzing their influences, not remember the 4 chambers of the heart. Because when it comes down to it, if there's a crisis and a kid needs to act, I need them to internalize the messages of skill-based health rather than for them to take in all that knowledge and do nothing with it. So the new skill-based health is very exciting for us, and it should be alive and well in every health education classroom. And I encourage you to read up on it. It's fantastic.
So forming a personal ethic and decision-making and applying that to these health situations.
Quite right.
And one of the biggest things that stood out to me in our conversations was this sense of moral courage that seems to guide you, this enthusiasm backed by conviction. Can you talk a little bit about what moral courage is and how it applies?
So moral courage, that which is the right thing to do even though it's hard. And I'm a supervisor that is in classrooms every single day, talk to kids every single day, evaluate teaching and observe teaching. And the hardest thing to do is to let a teacher know that something might be wrong in their classroom, and helping the teacher get better at teacher reflection. Sometimes that conversation doesn't go so well. And what's important is that the administrator needs that moral courage to see it through, even though it hurts, even though it's hard, even though relationships may sometimes be damaged. It takes moral courage for a health and phys ed teacher to stand up and say to a board of education, hey, what about us? That's the daily moral courage I'm talking about. It takes a lot of moral courage for a supervisor of PE to say, I need more physical educators because my class size should look exactly like any other class size across this district. That's the moral courage. And it doesn't go away. It can't go away. You cannot let up. Whether it's health and physical education, whether you're talking about counseling, nursing, whatever facet of the school you're talking about, administrators understand, and all of you in this room are shaking your head about the moral courage piece. You know that it's the hard piece to do and the follow-through really hurts, but it has to happen if we're going to move the needle on education at all.
Great. Well, I think that there's a lot that Judy could tell us, and I hope that some of you all will go to her Follow the Leader session and hear a little bit more about her work. Let's thank Judy.
Thank you.
Judy Lobianco is driven by the urgency of key indicators, such as high childhood obesity rates, that have convinced her that students need the skills to seek out physical activity they enjoy and to stay engaged in it long after they leave school. As Judy herself puts it, if you ask a physical educator, they would say the work they do in schools is literally a matter of life and death. Kids don't really talk about their health because they have health. It's only us old people, when we have a backache, who are taking a prescription. Judy, please join me here at the podium. I got to shake your hand.
Thank you.
Oh, come on, let's give it a good shake.
There we go.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Please join me in welcoming to the stage staff writer Maddie Will and Rachel Rodriguez, a director of instruction in the Gallup McKinley County Schools in Gallup, New Mexico.
I'm really excited to share with you all Rachel's story. As a director of instruction for the Gallup McKinley District in New Mexico, Rachel is in charge of transforming the culture of the school district and making sure that principals are the instructional leaders of their building. She coaches the principals so they can coach the teachers. So Rachel, one thing you told me that really stuck out during our conversations was that the district is no longer a culture of teaching. Instead, it's a culture of learning. Can you tell us a little bit about that transition and what that looks like?
I can, absolutely. First of all, thank you all for allowing me to be here. I'm so blessed to be following the leaders on the stage and the reporters. Thank you to my family. My 17-year-old daughter has taken time off school. I know it's hard for her and her heart to not be in class this week. To be here with me and all my colleagues in my school district. Michele said we don't do this work alone, and we don't. So my colleagues in my school district,
my friends, my family, Sue Yoakum for nominating me, and Ed Week for choosing me, so thank you. So with that, the difference between a teaching culture and a learning culture is really an aligned curriculum, right? Curriculum, instruction, assessment, data-driven analysis. So no longer can we say, well, I taught that, right? I wrote in my lesson plans, I taught it, it's not my fault they didn't learn it. We really have to decide what it is we're going to teach, how are we going to teach those things, and how do we know that the students learn them, right? We've been missing the student piece. I know I have amazing teachers in my district. I know that they know their content. We don't watch teachers anymore. We watch students, you know. It's important to see what students are doing in the classroom. Do they have content to struggle with? Or are they sitting like good little soldiers in compliance while the teacher demonstrates their knowledge? So it's messy, you know. Learning is messy, learning is noisy. Learning is also being prepared. Learning is an incredible amount of time from your teacher, your principal, your family, your community, to make sure that students are responsible from pre-K through seniors. They're responsible for the material. They're the ones who need to demonstrate and need to grow and need to have jobs and have lives and contribute to this world positively. So no longer can we watch teachers. We have to know that students are learning.
And so a cornerstone of that work has been making sure that every teacher has access to this job-embedded instructional coaching. So tell us a little bit about what that looks like.
Sure. So we have 33 schools in our district, 18 elementary, we just combined one, 18 elementary schools and 16 secondary schools. So we do have 26 instructional coaches, that's what they do all day long. We also work with consulting companies to make sure that we're hitting teacher instruction in all areas. So we are hitting in curriculum. We have an aligned curriculum with an aligned assessment. We are hitting them with instructional strategies. We also have companies that we work with, and myself included. My job is to make sure that principals are now instructional leaders. Principals have to be the best teacher in their school. And by that, I don't mean content. By that, I mean knowing what to look for when you're in classrooms. Are teachers teaching the right things? And so when we talk about teacher improvement, we talk about trained or untrained, right? We do a lot of work with Paul Bambrick Santoyo, and he says that all the time. Are you trained or are you untrained? And our teachers need to be trained in what to do and what to look for.
How has all this work impacted student achievement?
I'm glad you asked that. It's actually improved student achievement. We have been at this work for a long time. We did take a little bit of a slide backwards this year. In New Mexico, we are on a growth model and a school grade model, and so over the past 5 years, we have decreased our 11 Fs to 0. And then last year, fantastic, but last year we slid back a little bit and had 4. But now we know it was because we didn't have that aligned curriculum, instruction, and assessment. So now that we have that, we expect to keep moving forward. So it has dramatically improved student achievement scores, for sure.
So you told me that principals are now expected to do 5 classroom walkthroughs a week. I'm sure, principals are busy people. I'm sure this is a lot of extra work for them, but it seems like you've gotten a great deal of buy-in from the principals in your community. How did you get that?
We do have buy-in, not 100%, but we're working on it. So we got buy-in through hard work, through student achievement scores. The principals that are really following the observation and feedback cycle are seeing growth, are seeing reduced discipline issues, are seeing happier teachers. Teachers want you in their classroom. Even secondary teachers, they say they don't, they do. They want you in their classrooms. And so when you require principals to be in classrooms every single day, every single week, it changes the culture in the school, And so it creates buy-in because of the results. So we know that it's not enough anymore just to be present in classrooms, which helps. I mean, if you're going to start anywhere, start there. Be in your classrooms. But when you have that established, you have to follow any kind of observation and feedback cycle. So it's not enough just to be in classrooms. You have to be coaching teachers up. You have to be an instructional leader. I know management is huge, huge. Something is always knocking on your door. There is always a fire to put out, always. But if you allow yourself to be reactive instead of proactive, everything can take priority over being in your classrooms. But that's the most important thing. So we're really working on shifting that the most important thing is teaching and learning. So we have a lot of buy-in, a lot of experienced principals feeling success. We have a lot of work to go, a long ways to go and a lot of work to do though.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but Rachel has so much more to share, so please go to her Follow the Leader session so you can hear about it. Please join me in thanking Rachel.
Rachel Rodriguez is charged with improving instruction and teaching practices in a district with many challenges and located in one of the poorest counties in the country. She has taken her love of learning, cemented throughout her career as a teacher, a principal, and a district-level administrator in various roles, offering support to educators, and poured it into initiatives to better train and support teachers and principals. Situations happen where you think you can do it better, she says, reflecting on what was a difficult decision to leave teaching for a leadership position in the district. When you're a teacher, you can impact a classroom. When you're a principal, you can impact every student at that school. But when you're in the district office, you can impact the entire district. And that's an amazing thing. Rachel, please join me here at the podium. Congratulations. Shake your hand. Very proud of you. Let's get our pictures.
Hangzhou, this university is here. Hangzhou, so it's the capital of Beijing.
School and learning isn't just about Bellefonte. It's not just about the building that they're in. It's this bigger concept. It's about understanding the world. And I think that's what our programs do. When I first came to the district, we had Spanish and French. I knew we wanted to bring in some critical languages, and I wanted to bring in Chinese. We find our Chinese teachers in a partnership through the University of Pittsburgh, and it's a very extensive process. We want to make sure that the teachers we bring over here are teachers who are their graduate students. They're working on some aspect of education so that when we bring them into our classroom, it's not a totally foreign experience.
Before we come to America, she already contacted to us, tell us that welcome to Bellefonte, you will be teaching at Bellefonte, and they sent us an email about where you're living and what kind of apartment I got for you, and don't worry about that, I will be here like that. It's so kind.
They sometimes call me their American mother. So I'm the person that picks them up, brings them here, just takes them to their apartment, takes them further, first meal here in town, their groceries, meeting people, touring the town, that kind of thing. Our town doesn't have a lot of diversity, so it's super important to us too that our students understand that cultural differences and the diversity that's out there in the world.
I also wanted to make sure that the languages were available for our students at the elementary level, because we know that's when it's most productive. When we're talking about languages with tone, that's when kids get it. I think we're also giving them the opportunities to study language and to study a wide range of languages so they can pick and choose and see what is the best complement for them. The community's reaction has been very positive. Honestly, I was a little bit surprised, I will admit that. I thought, okay, I'm bringing in Chinese. You know, how are they going to react to Chinese?
It's an I. It's a box.
They're pleasantly surprised that a town like Bellefonte, that's sort of small and has not much diversity, is saying this is important.
Have there been some people who have made statements such as, you know, you only ever need to know English? You know, my argument has always been, yeah, a lot of people speak English, not everyone speaks English.
As far as learning languages, it's interesting because from my perspective, English is the business language. So that's not to say that we should not be learning the language. You can communicate a whole lot better and get more respect from people if you are a business person and you're learning French or German or Chinese. So we are looking globally, but we also have to recognize what our local community needs, and I think she's been very good with that.
I didn't set out to be a superintendent. I really just set out to help make a difference for kids, and I started in the classroom. It's one of those things where if there's something that needs to be done and you think you can contribute to getting that job done, you step up to the plate.
Tell me what you think it would be important for you to be able to know or do when you leave here, when you graduate.
The most important thing that I hope students get out of learning languages and cultures is they start learning that the world, as large as it is a really small place.
Blinded.
Well, thanks again for speaking with us today. My name is Stephen Salchuk. I'm an associate editor at Education Week, and I cover curriculum. And Michele and I, actually, we had this grand plan to conduct today's entire conversation in Mandarin Chinese. But then somehow we were talked out of this by the editors. I think that was probably a good move. So anyway, great video. That was the first time I've seen it. So, all right, so I think where I'd like to start today is that as we saw in the narrative, Bellefonte is a fairly homogenous place, not politically, but just in terms of demographics. And I can definitely see parents saying, why would we emphasize Mandarin, or even foreign language generally for that matter? And what was your response? And how did you get the community and the board to sort of back this shift in emphasis?
Sure. First, I'm going to say thank you to Education Week. This is a phenomenal opportunity for all of us. And as you saw on the narrative, it's really, truly not about me. It's about our team, and it's about all the hard work our team has done, and it's about building capacity and empowerment in them so they can sustain the work we do. So I just really, really want to thank them also. But as far as the language program in Mandarin Chinese went, it was part of a larger global vision. You know, we're passionate about building global competence in all of our students and our staff. We think it's critical to their success beyond our walls. And Mandarin Chinese as a critical language was truly something that I wanted to look at. And I wanted to look at it for our most impoverished school for a lot of reasons. Some of those reasons, you know, were equity, opportunity. You know, every child deserves rich learning experiences. And I was talking about a school that didn't have some of the opportunities that our more affluent schools had. I was also looking at research. You know, research tells us that learning a second language has positive cognitive effects for students. You know, we know that a student who learns a second language is more focused. They're able to retain attention longer. You know, that serves them well both in school and in life. You know, it helps them focus beyond those distractions. And we know our children bring a lot of distractions to school that they face at home and in their lives. So that was kind of the vision behind it. And it was, you know, it was a mixed plate when I brought it to the district. I had a board who saw, for the most part, they saw, you know, how it was going to be a positive experience for our students. I had some teachers who really thought this would be great. Some thought that it was going to be competing with things they did in their classroom. You know, everyone's competing for resources, right? How are we going to do this, and how are we going to make it also equitable as far as resources go? And then I had community members. And Stephen's right, we really do not have a lot of diversity in our community. And we have a community that has both those people who look through a very traditional lens at education and those that are progressive. And we have those that promote change and those that fear change. And this was scary to some of our community members. In fact, we had one community member who came to a board meeting, and he stood before the board and he said, no, we can't bring Chinese into our schools. You're going to be promoting communism. Well, that's a whole nother conversation, right? But it also explains some of the things that we need to do, because people make decisions within their context. They react to decisions within their context. So in creating the buy-in, it was really about articulating that vision and having a lot of conversations and answering those whys, building the partnerships, you know, getting the YMCA involved, the art museums involved, the local library involved, bringing cultural events to the community that supported the language that we were introducing, and sitting down with that gentleman and talking to him about his fears and concerns from an avenue that he could understand. So how did we talk about it? We talked about it through economic advantages for his children, and in his terms, we talked about it as security interests from a national standpoint. So it was really understanding, listening to those whys, getting the involvement, and clearly articulating where we were going along the way.
Now, one of the obstacles you faced was purely logistical. And I did some research and found that in 2014-15, Pennsylvania only produced 6 Chinese teachers. Right. You needed 2, so you would have essentially been hiring a 3rd.
Right.
And so instead, you were able to work in this partnership
right.
to hire teachers from mainland China. What was that process like, and what were some of the benefits and what were some of the challenges of bringing people from a really different culture?
Right. We actually developed a partnership with one of the IUs. In Pennsylvania, you have intermediate units, which are kind of the liaison between the Pennsylvania Department of Education and the districts themselves. And in conjunction with the IU and the University of Pittsburgh, we were able to bring Chinese teachers, graduate students who were studying education in China, in to become our teachers. They would go through a very rigorous vetting process, hiring process. You know, they have to go through PDE to become certified as teachers in an emergency basis. Some challenges are we can only have those teachers for 1 year, right? So in essence, we always have a new teacher in the classroom. That's a challenge. You know, there's also those cultural challenges of bridging understanding between faculty and our new teachers coming in, because they don't always perceive pedagogy or see the children the same way. So those are things that you work through, and they're very easy to work through. Some of the other challenges that we had was with our association, our teachers association. You know, they saw that bringing in teachers from mainland China rather than hiring teachers from here in the United States was in essence supplanting some of their positions. All right, it wasn't ever meant to be that. If we had the teachers available to us, we would have hired them. So it was working through some conflicts with the association over time and building that trust. Positives have been, you know, you have a natural speaker in the classroom. You know, especially when you're talking about Chinese, and you're talking about a language that you're dealing with tone. It's critical. Pronunciation. You know, a native speaker can bring those cultural components to the table that a second language speaker may not be able to. The storytelling, the idioms, the fascinating insights. So yes, there's been positives. Yes, there's been negatives. It's been very beneficial for our students, and we've seen them thrive because of it.
Well, the little doomsday clock in front of me tells me that
gosh.
we're almost out of time. So, but fortunately, we have the Follow the Leader session right after this, and I really hope that some of you will come to Michele's and learn all the things that I've learned in being privileged to do this profile with you today. So thank you again.
Thank you,
congratulations.
Stephen. Thank you.
reading, writing, rolled R's, and Han characters. In Bellefonte, Pennsylvania, students from kindergarten on up get a dose of Mandarin or Spanish alongside the traditional subjects. It's part of Superintendent Michele Saylor's vision for using foreign language learning as a lever to getting students and teachers alike to think about what global citizenship really means and the district's role in promoting it. From Michele's perspective, language is that conduit into really understanding another culture. The nuances of language, the vocabulary of language really give you insights into other people you don't have without that component. Plus, it gives our kids an advantage in a world where everyone but Americans are bilingual or multilingual. Michele, please join me here on the stage. Congratulations to you. I'm very proud. You get some extra special attention. All right, we can do it.
We can do it.
We can do it. Thank you. Congratulations again. Thank you.
Is this on? Yeah. This was an incredible array of talent. Thank you for your patience with our little pas de deux that we're doing up here. It's something we've been choreographing for days. Anyway, we're now not going to leave you swimming in ideas and questions. There's far too many of those. And what's great about the next 30 minutes is that you're going to have the chance to meet, discuss, and follow the leader. If we could, thank you. All of our leadership ambassadors are now entering the stadium. Right to the front of the stage, ladies and gentlemen. At this point, I'd like to ask those 6 leaders, that includes Rachel, Michele Saylor, Judy, Joe, Mohammad, and Eileen, if you would come and join your leadership ambassador here at the front of the room. Okay, these will be your room monitors, and they're going to be helping you throughout the rest of your day. That includes everybody else who's an attendee here right now. This is the part of the day when I wish those of you on the live stream over there, yes, those of you on the live stream, I wish that you could be here with us. For everyone who is in this room, you're going to be following these folks to sessions on the 2nd floor. Beginning shortly, you'll participate in one of 6 different breakout discussions in various locations that should be clearly marked. There'll be volunteers up there if you can't find something, so be sure to ask our volunteers here to help you. You'll follow those first 6 leaders for 30 minutes, and at the close of that session, your afternoon deep dive sessions and the industry perspectives brought to you by our sponsors will follow. We'll all assemble back here in the Grand Ballroom at 4:15 for today's closing keynote on parent and family engagement with 5 alumni leaders to learn from, all of whom are going to bring their unique and unified vision for a critical K-12 challenge that all of your school districts face. Before you go, I want you to be sure to fill out your evaluations with the URL you see on the screen. For those watching on the live stream, exclusive content's going to be beginning for you momentarily. Now, for those of you who are at the Got Your Badge, you have this amazing, beautiful program created by Laura Baker and her team in the art department at Ed Week. I want you to use this to find rooms, wonder where you're supposed to be at a given time. It's all on the second page, well, the facing page when you open the program. In addition, we want you all to use the hashtag Leaders to Learn From. Thank you so much. I noticed that we were trending on Twitter, so great work. Keep up the good work. And we'll hopefully see those brought to life as you bring the leaders' lessons to the public. We'll see you again here at 4:15. Enjoy your afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. How were your sessions? I understand they were hot, not just hot. So I hope you guys know that we've heard your calls and your requests, and we're going to get those rooms temperature controlled for tomorrow, so they'll be much more comfortable. I hope you did have a great learning session. Did you guys also have it sounds like you've had the opportunities to meet up and connect, so I'm glad to hear that as well. I hope you found the connecting easy and fun. I'm curious for anybody here who's had the experience of actually being at a table where you've used your tabletop conversation starters. If those have worked, let us know. Certainly let me know. Or you can take the survey online at leaders.edweek.org 2018 eval. If you haven't connected with new folks or with the 2018 leaders, we'll be repeating today's experience again tomorrow morning, but we'll be doing that with a whole new group of leaders. So everybody on the live stream, you're going to also get to meet 6 new leaders tomorrow. Now you're in for a real treat. I've been working with Michele Brooks, our leader from 2013, for, I want to say, was it like shortly, maybe before Halloween, I want to say Thanksgiving. I mean, we've been working on this for a while, saying how can we meet up and bring together the people that have been recognized for their great work in leadership on parent and family engagement. There's a lot of reasons, and you're going to hear them now, why this is a pivotal and critical issue for the readers of Education Week, of which many of you are. Since 2018, EdWeek's Leaders to Learn From team, that's Leslie Maxwell and a load of the rest of us, have been focusing on connecting with our leader alumni and seeking out their ideas for the content that you need for you to better excel at the work you do. In past years, we brought to the stage conversations that have revolved around everything from equity to community schools and school turnaround and more. Today, during your deep dive sessions, I hope some of you have had the opportunity to interact with Julio Cesar Contreras, who conducted a meetup on supporting principal instructional leadership. And for those of you on the live stream, you'll be having a chance to see that tomorrow. So we've captured that, and we're going to be playing that for you tomorrow at, I believe, 11:50 a.m. Now we're on to we're excited to highlight and reintroduce you to a dynamic collective of thinkers and practitioners from a world of parent and family engagement. You're in for what we hope is a very special experience for a conversation on how to make family engagement a lever for equity and student achievement. In today's closing keynote, it's my privilege, and I thank you ladies all, for having the opportunity to bring together, welcoming back to the Leaders to Learn From stage, Michele Brooks, Tracy Hill, Patricia Spradley, Delisa Crane, and Therese Moore. First today, Michele Brooks will kick us off with a short introduction to this important work.
How would you define family engagement for someone who is new to the topic?
I would define it as all of the things that families do to support their children's success, both in relation to school and in relation to society.
I think of family engagement as a public good. I think of it as a shared responsibility.
Fundamentally, I see engagement as a process of you and me sitting down and talking with each other about your child who's in my classroom, with whom I'm working, and telling me what I need to know to be the best teacher I can be.
I think family engagement is really about building a relationship and a collaborative experience around supporting that child.
Family engagement is really how you enjoin families in being part of the solution for their students first and then their schools second.
Family engagement is about engaging in the life of your child in school, but also in changing our system so that your child and all children have a chance for really a high quality education.
One can choose to set the boundaries someplace between family and the rest of the world, but it all matters.
Parents have agency. It's not we're doing to, it's we're doing with.
Engagement is a two-way street. It means letting families know not only about what's happening, but what some of the challenges are, and relying on them for real solutions.
It's work where parents, caregivers, and teachers see themselves in many ways as equals.
13 cohorts. I define family engagement as a powerful catalyst for transforming school culture, student achievement, and school improvement. I stand before you today as a result of a transformational moment. My story is like the story of many other families and parents who want the best for their children, who didn't have the best educational experience, who are marginalized and devalued because of where they come from, the color of their skin, the language that they speak, and where they live. My relationship with school had been an adversarial one, to say the least, both as a student and as a parent. As a parent, I was determined that my children were going to have a different experience than I did. And so I became a fierce warrior for my children, sometimes in inappropriate ways, but I stand before you transformed. It was an encounter with my daughter's high school principal that facilitated that transformational moment for me. I had felt very disrespected while I was in the school, and I had begun to act inappropriately. And instead of asking me to leave, he brought me into his office and he said to me, "I work for you, so tell me how I can make this right." That was my transformational moment. We talked about my expectations for my child and for the teachers who taught her. He shared his challenges and encouraged me to become engaged and to become a partner with the school and to hold him and the staff accountable for those things that I wanted for my children. That was the beginning of my journey that has led me to this podium where I stand today. I share this story to demonstrate the power that lies in a power of transformation that lies in every encounter that we have as educators with families, with students, and with each other. Our work is truly relational. My role today is to provide some context for the discussion that will follow with my esteemed colleagues. In my travels across the country, working with districts, I have encountered, so many outdated and deficit-based views of family engagement. So I wanted to begin this talk by really talking about how the work has evolved and what family engagement is and what it isn't. Too often, educators and leaders, even those who claim to have deep-seated beliefs in the value of families, view families through a deficit lens. They see families as needing to be fixed. You know, if only we could get better parents, we'd have better engagement. Or they see them as resources for fundraising and volunteering, which is somewhat more productive, but they often don't see families as valuable assets in the educational process. They miss an opportunity to connect with families in ways that build relationships of trust, that dispel bias, that bridge cultural differences, and unlock the engagement of families as a key component for student learning and well-being. And I'm also going to add in school improvement. Family engagement is not a program. It is not a program. It is a practice. It is what we do. It should be embedded in our work. And it is a practice that transforms. And it transforms individuals. It transforms the educators who really who effectively engage families. It transforms their practice on how they look at instruction and how they embed instruction engagement strategies into their instructional practice. And educators who engage families view their families as assets. There is a recent study from Johns Hopkins that looks at the parent-teacher home visit model. And what it has found is that when parents engage in relational activities, relational strategies with families, it reduces teacher bias, which there's a lot of research that said teacher bias is one of the factors that impact the achievement gap. Family engagement is a practice that builds a sense of self-efficacy in parents, building their capacity and their confidence to support their children and their children's learning at home as well as in school. And leaders who embrace and establish environments that value and respect and engage families and students and teachers, that transforms the culture of schools. Family engagement is a practice that transforms student achievement and school improvement. Anthony Bright's work in Chicago, organizing schools, the Chicago Consortium did a longitudinal study looking at schools that have turned around and maintained a level of high achievement. And it's all chronicled in the book, Organizing Schools for Improvement. And what they said was there were 5 elements for turning around and improving schools. And the first, of course, was leadership. Not just any kind of leadership, but leadership that is collaborative and distributive, and that creates an environment for everyone to grow and learn. Another is strong parent and community ties. And that's defined by teacher outreach to parents, and teachers' ability to bring the classroom, the communities that the students come from, into the classroom to make things relevant. It's also about instructional guidance, that everyone knows what children should know and be able to do, and professional capacity, that everyone is able to really teach, and that every teacher understands what needs to happen in that classroom around instruction in order to support those children. And it's all grounded in a student-centered learning climate that is really grounded in safety, not just physical safety, psychological safety, intellectual safety, emotional safety, but safety of children and the supports for children. Family engagement is an evolving field, and it is evolving and moving beyond the bake sale. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the book by Karen Mapp and Ann Henderson, Beyond the Bake Sale, but if you have not, if you don't have a copy, I would suggest that you get that copy. We think that it is the definitive guide for implementing family engagement in your districts. More states and districts are acknowledging the role family engagement plays as a lever for equity. And there are some examples of this across the country. More and more districts are embedding family engagement in their equity policies. So if you look at states like Oregon and Washington State, if you look at districts like Tukwila, Washington, I recently have been working with them, and their equity policy is grounded in family engagement. In Boston, their achievement gap policy has big sections on family engagement. I think more and more districts are realizing that in order to level the playing field, you've got to know who your children are, and in order to know who your children are, you must know who their families are. There's greater intentionality to embed engagement strategies into teacher instructional practice, linking engagement to learning. And there are some really effective strategies, academic parent-teacher teams using student data and really helping parents understand what their children should know, giving them strategies that they can take home, and building a sense of social capital among parents really focused on their children's learning. And these things are really, the most effective strategies are data-driven strategies, just like with instruction. Where are children really struggling, and how do we make home an extension of school by giving parents strategies to help them on those skills? There's a focus on systemic engagement. Rather than isolated events, we all have those back-to-school nights and the multicultural nights. But my question is always to folks, so what is different for families when they leave those events? What do they know about what their children should know and be able to do? And what do they walk away, what strategies do they walk away with? So looking at this very systemically, it is about building the systems and structures that will support schools, that will support teachers, and that will support families. And with clear expectations, aligned in coherence with goals, and creating support so that educators can meet the expectations that are put out there. And when I look at districts, I look at Washoe County Public Schools, and you'll be hearing from Delisa Crane and from Cleveland Metropolitan School Districts. When I look at this whole notion of systems and this systemic nature of this work, where folks are sharing the language of engagement, and where the systems and structures are set up for people, for the entire district to understand what the expectations are, it's very systemic. But there are some new things happening, like regional efforts to build capacity. In Hartford, Connecticut, in the Seattle, Washington area, there are groups of districts that come together and have professional learning communities around family engagement, which build regional capacity and create opportunities to share. And recent scans of districts really identify that the number of positions in schools has grown. In 2009, a group of 6 district leaders came together and really pulled together and said, this is a new kind of a position, and we need to make sure that we are attending to our own professional development and that we have opportunities to share, and that gave birth to the District Leaders Network for Family and Community Engagement, which went from 6 members in 2009 to about 200 in 2017. And it is sponsored by the Institute for Educational Leadership, and it is run by and for district leaders in this field. There has been, flip this, okay. And there also is a national Family and Community Engagement Conference. This will be the 5th year for that. And 5 years ago, there were 500 people that attended the national conference. Last year, we had 1,700 people attend that conference. So this is a growing and evolving field. But the work is not without challenges. Educational prep programs do not adequately prepare teachers, principals, or superintendents to effectively engage families. The complexities of educational systems produce many competing priorities, which tend to silo our approach to educating children and to engaging families. We need a more collaborative approach that leverages the power of family engagement in service to these priorities. Bias and deficit mindset, both implicit and explicit, remain a challenge, not just in family engagement, but in education in general. In my experience, the greatest obstacle to the implementation of effective engagement is the lip service that espouse belief that some superintendents, I can say this because I'm not in district now, some superintendents, some principals, actually they espouse this belief, and I think that in their hearts they really believe that families are important, but we can get to families after we figure out the instruction piece. And so it never happens, and there's no accountability, there's no expectations. And what that does is it robs the educational process of a key asset, the engagement of families. So leadership, for me, is really what is key. Leadership is essential for transformation of education. Leadership matters in transforming instruction. Leadership matters in transforming school culture. Leadership matters in transforming how we ensure that every child has access to opportunities to reach their potential in life. Leadership matters when it comes to transforming the most important relationship that our students have, the relationship with their families. Family engagement is a lever for achievement and equity, and it is my honor to share the stage with my colleagues, and we will be discussing this in much more length. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this keynote discussion. I'm sure it'll be a fascinating one, and thank you so much for Michele. You can see another example of why we call this Leaders to Learn From. Michele was our very first leader to learn from and for parent engagement when she worked in the Boston City Schools. She was honored 5 years ago, and thank you so much for framing this issue so beautifully for us. So now we're going to get ideas from more alumni of this program, and all of them have been recognized as leaders to learn from over the years for their work. And I would love to have each one of them please introduce yourself and the year that you were honored, your district and state, please. So we'll start with you, Tracy.
My name is Tracy Hill. I'm the Executive Director of Family and Community Engagement for the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, class of 2014.
And I'm Patricia Spradley, and I'm the Chief of Parent and Community Engagement, Springfield Public Schools, Springfield, Massachusetts.
I'm Delisa Crane with Washoe County School District in Reno, Nevada, not Nevada. I was in 2016.
I'm Therese Moore, the Equity and Family Engagement Director for Federal Way, the other Washington, and I was the 2017 Leader to Learn From.
Could I have just a quick round of applause for this speech? Now, something you can't see is that Patricia is wearing this WWW pin that's very glittery, and it's... Can we get a close-up? So basically, that's, and guess what it stands for? Women who win, and I think that defines this group beautifully. My first question this afternoon is, what does it look like when you honor and value the engagement of families? Therese.
From my perspective, I believe honoring the engagement of families has to do with listening to them before making any decisions about what it is you want to do for their children. I also believe that when you honor families, in our district, what we've done is we included families in our strategic plan. We've aligned our pillars and our goals with family and community engagement with the phrase, you can't do it alone. And so when you honor family voice and when you honor families as partners as opposed to people that you just want to get input from, you create platforms where they can help make decisions. You create opportunities where they're at the table before you're in the mid-range area of what it is you want to do for children and with children. And also when you honor family voice and you include parents as partners, you understand that sometimes parents don't have a self-efficacy that allows them to say, I make a difference. I am important. Principals and teachers that are able to convince parents that their voice matters, no matter what color they are or what their income level is, principals and teachers that are able to do that, they come up with their own strategies that cause parents to say, you know, I think I do matter. I can tell because this principal or this teacher makes me feel like I know my child in a way that is important for them.
Very, very good, interesting. And so tell me, I'm going to ask each of you to talk a little bit about the work that makes you the most proud in your roles. And Tracy, if you would start, that would be great.
Well, I think the work that makes me most proud is that there's been a shift in Cleveland in terms of how our parents are perceived. As you all probably know, Cleveland is one of the poorest cities in our nation. And because of that, there was a perception that our parents don't care. If you're poor and black or Latino or brown or even white and you live in Cleveland and your kids go to our schools, the past perception was that they don't care about education. And I've been in the district for 8 years and met thousands of parents and know that each one of those parents cares. They might express it in different ways. What we've been able to think that I'm most proud of is that there's been a shift. When I first came into the district, parent engagement was that thing that happened, was a program, an event. Now it's really a clear strategy where we are working to build the capacity of our schools to engage with our parents as partners, and also working with our parents to have a voice, to realize that they have the power to help reform our district and institute the changes that are necessary. So building that capacity on the parent side, our family side, and also on the school side, and proudly changing the culture. So our parents, when they walk into the buildings, they feel welcomed. They feel like they are part of the reform efforts. We've really had a laser-like focus on parent and teacher engagement. And last year in our district, one of the poorest cities in America, 91% of our parents came to schools for conferences or meetings with their teachers. And when I say that, it dispels this, it dispels that myth that our parents don't care. They care very deeply, and that's one of the things that I'm most proud of, is changing that perception of our parents, of parents who are living in poverty and extreme conditions.
Great, thank you. Tricia.
I'm going to try to talk fast because I want to get two in. So one of them that I'm most proud of is the Springfield Parent Academy. For years, I myself, I'm sure along with many others, accused parents of not caring or not coming to support their children or be there. And so when I got rid of that bad judgment on my part, we decided that we needed to create an opportunity for parents to build capacity. And the way in which we did that was by developing the Springfield Parent Academy. And so what we do is we provide courses all over the city, high quality courses, because what I realized was that parents were the only sector that didn't have a formalized way to build capacity. And we made some assumptions, I myself included. And so in Springfield, all of those courses, they're offered all over the city by all sorts of folks, businesses, faith-based organizations, community-based organizations, all for free. No one gets paid for delivering the courses. And we created a venue and a process to make sure that those courses are vetted in the same way that teachers get theirs vetted, the courses, because it was important to have high quality. Because remember, we're sending those kids home after we do what we do as educators, and so how can they best support them? By knowing what it is that we're doing so that they can support them. But I just want to quickly talk to, we went through several iterations before we got it right. One of the, we now do courses in two different ways, but the one I want to talk about very briefly is called Courses on Wheels. We go to apartment complexes. We go down in the community room. We partner with early childhood education so that they come in and they're working with the children, teaching them while we're teaching the parents. We feed them. There's no transportation issues. They come down in their pajamas and rollers in their hair sometimes. I don't really care. What I'm able to do is remove every barrier, because at the end of the day, what did it matter? It matters that I have them in front of me so that we can actually deliver and build capacity within those families so that they can truly support their kids. So we do that all over the city. Sometimes we do it at schools, sometimes we do it at churches, but we go to them. We made the really bad mistake of saying they needed to come to us. We spent thousands of dollars having them on beautiful campuses to have very few parents show up. I mean, giveaways, you name it, we did it, but the best thing was going to them. And what I realized was that we need to meet families where they are, just like we need to meet students where they are. Real quick, the second thing are home visits. And the reason why I think that's most effective is that in our district, we have predominantly Caucasian teachers, but brown kids. And so I tell my white colleagues, you don't have to apologize for being white. You're white, you're white. I'm Black. We are who we are. But I needed to help them understand and have some strategies and techniques on when they're trying to build and establish relationships with them. And I cannot think of a better way than to bring teachers along to urban environments that they would not have had the opportunity to be in if it were not for home visits. Very quick story. My very first home visit was with a fourth grade teacher of a child named Jose. And we talked to teachers prior to. So I said, what's your problem with Jose? You know what? He never finishes his homework on time. I am sick and tired of him never finishing his homework on time. And I sort of went like, well, gee, don't you have a whole bunch of kids who never do homework? At least he halfway does his homework. But that, I didn't say that. Those bubbles over your head make me not say a whole bunch of stuff. So I said to her, I'm going to go on a home visit with you. So we went to the home visit, and when we got there, Jose was actually in his room doing his homework. And what we realized was that the reason why it was halfway done is because he needed the street lights to do his homework. And so they had no electricity. It got dark. He couldn't finish. That was when I saw that teacher with tears streaming down her face, I said, I got her. But more than that, when she got back to her classroom and I saw how she changed just her tone, because I told her I was going to come back and not tell her when I was coming back, just to see if it made a difference, because it's so hard to measure parent engagement. But when I saw how she was tending to kids, when I saw how she was speaking to kids, when I saw how she decided to take 10 of her most challenging students and reach out once a week to call that parent, not because Johnny or Jose was doing bad, but because she was saying things like, you know what, we missed Johnny. What happened to him? Where was he? Not, you know, Johnny's been out for 13 days, when are you going to get him back? There's a major difference in delivery, but if that teacher had not had the opportunity to go into that home with me, to have an experience that she never would have had because she's white in a suburban area in Wilbraham next to Springfield, she would have never had that experience. I don't hold it against anybody, but I challenge teachers who may have some fear. We provide training. Please, if you have not done a home visit, do one now. Thanks for allowing me to share.
Why do I have to follow Pat is my first question. So I think the thing that I'm most proud of is the team that I work with is absolutely tenacious. They don't give up. So the first year, 7 years ago, we rolled out a parent university, and we would have many nights where we would show up and nobody would be there. We served 700 families that first year, and now in our 7th year, we serve over 7,000 families. So I think just being tenacious, looking at the data, having conversations. When we first rolled out our Parent U, we did it in absence of our schools. We did it for them, and you, as a district, cannot do family engagement for your schools. It has to be in partnership with teachers, with principals. And then the other thing I'd say I'm proud of in our district is we work pretty collaboratively across departments. So whether it's our EL department, whether it's our social and emotional learning department, our professional learning department, our equity and diversity, if we're on our university campus on a Saturday with families, they come and facilitate conversations with our families. And that's an important nuance, because a lot of times people want to come and just dump information on families. This is not you're going to stand in front of our families and talk for an hour and a half and just slide after slide, right? We're going to do this like we do professional learning with teachers. It's adult learning. So you, as the department, are going to give them a little bit of content, let them process, and figure out how they might apply this at home. So we do side-by-side learning with our SEL department, with families and teachers. That's been super powerful when a teacher can sit next to a parent and say, this is how I do it in my classroom, and the parent can say, well, this is what might work for me at home. So I'm just proud of the team that I work with, and I have some Washoe peeps in this room, so raise your hand.
I would say I get to listen to my colleagues and piggyback off of what they've already done. So I can share that similar to each of them, I'm also proud of the teamwork of the leaders and the people in our district that actually make sure that family engagement is embedded not through PTA, not through a teacher who chooses to, not through a principal that says that's my thing, but actually I'm proud of being in a district where it's strategically aligned, coordinated, and implemented with a system perspective of, if Treese isn't doing this well, does that mean family engagement doesn't happen? And so I'm really excited that our CE survey, originally we had our own survey that we created and we asked parents to take part in it, and then we years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, graded ourselves based on our analysis of ourselves in family engagement. So now that we have this strategic plan that says, these are our goals, this is the pillar that says we want family and community engagement to be a partnership approach. So we had the CE survey that we've taken 2 or 3 years, and they've compared us to other districts in the country, and when we look at where we stand, not just with ourselves, for ourselves, not just our schools only or one school to another, but we found that we were high on the charts with our peers throughout the country when it comes to effective family engagement. So we're really proud of that, and that takes more than a family engagement director to happen. It takes a strategic plan that makes sure everybody knows what's important. And so some of the strategies also that I've participated in and been a collaborator on is making sure that we have this family liaison approach with an onboarding system that promotes fidelity. So I read some research and was honored to be able to study about Dr. Mapp and Michele's work years ago. And even though this is my 15th year as a family engagement director, I followed a lot of other districts that were doing the work. And so I'm really proud that I've been able to, as a leader, learn from parents and from other people to see that when you have family liaisons and when you say you want a person in a building on the school level that will help families, first of all, you need to make sure that they're not a gatekeeper. Secondly, you need to make sure that they know how to measure the impact of what they're doing. Thirdly, you need to make sure that they understand that they're partnering with your wonderful PTA on the school level, but the parents that they're going to serve may or may not be a part of PTA. So we're really proud of the fact that on a national and a state level, according to an objective survey of feedback, our parents believe that we're doing pretty well in family and community engagement based on questions connected to, do you feel welcome? Do you feel like a partner? Do you feel that you know what you need to know to help your child at home? Do you believe that your child knows what they're supposed to learn? So I'm just excited that we now have a way to measure the impact. I'm excited that we have family liaisons in 23 of our elementary schools who don't only do connections and support for families in poverty, but they actually take a mom who may be single and who may have been stereotyped as a mom who's in poverty who may not know how to help her child. Our family liaisons literally say, yes, we understand that you have some needs that are specific to your socioeconomic level, but we also believe that you can check your child's grade. You can monitor your child's progress. Well, I don't have a computer, the mom says. Well, that's okay. We'll figure out a way to help you get to the library because there are free computers in the library. I don't have a library card. Okay, we'll help make sure you have a library card. Why do our family liaisons do this? Because they don't want to get in the way of parents knowing that even though we believe in family engagement and we want parent voice, ultimately we do this so that your children will succeed. And your child's not going to have the same teacher every year. Your child may not have the same principal every year. Your child may not be in the same school every year. You're the one person, mom, dad, godmother, grandmother, whoever it is that's honoring this child and getting them to school. You're the one that needs to monitor the progress of that child. And if you don't have the self-efficacy to know that you need to be monitoring it, we can't blame the teacher or the principal. We ultimately have to make sure that you are asking questions, you know what questions to ask, and you know how to check as the person who loves that child, more typically than the teacher or principal can.
Well, I invite all of you to think about the ripple effect of the work that this group of
Leaders does. Think of the thousands of students who've been affected, and think of the snowball effect, because basically what you're all doing, when you hear that you started with 700 and it went to 7,000, that thousands and thousands of children and families are being affected, and that they're going out, the kids are growing up and going out into this world, and that's a really great thing. So we talked briefly about the notion of how many challenges there are, and we decided that was a 2-hour discussion. So instead of 2 hours, we're going to just go with 1 or 2 very challenges of having a family engagement initiative, and Delisa will start us off on that.
Yeah, I'd say the first one is bias. I hear so many disparaging remarks about families. I still hear in a lot of circles deficit language. Michele touched on this quite a bit. We really need to think about our language when we're talking about our families. Are we talking about our families in a positive way, in an asset-based language? Are we working on connection and empathy? Or do the words that we say about our families, do they really come out as blame? And you can hear this quite a bit, right? So if you listen for it, so it's challenging that and trying to change that conversation in our buildings, I think, and in our district and in our nation. The amount of times I hear homes talked about in a deficit manner, we have to make sure that we truly know people before we're making assumptions about them and blaming families for what they may or may not know how to do for their kids. And I'd say the second thing is we really need systemic support. We need support in every building. We need support at the district level. We need support at the state level and at the federal level. Family engagement is not the thing that you do to check off the list and it's last on the list and I checked it off, right? It is an instructional strategy. When done well, when it's linked to learning, when it's connected, when it's collaborative, we need support for that. And that support takes dedicated time, it takes dedicated staff, it takes dedicated people. We don't just get the 5 minutes at the end of the professional learning. We don't get the crumbs on the table from the end of the grant, right? It takes dedication and it takes support. This work does not magically happen.
So does one more person would you like to jump in on the challenges? Or?
Yeah, I mean, Tracy. I can say that one of the challenges is, when we have a large turnover in our district of principals and administrators. And it's like every year we're starting all over again and trying to build that culture and build that deep understanding of why this work is important. We've come a long way in Cleveland, but we still have a long way to go. And oftentimes there's really, when you're talking about reforming a district and raising achievement, there's just this ultra focus on instructional practice and instructional leadership. And sometimes people don't understand that good schools, instruction counts, but there's these other factors, right? There's this social emotional learning. You can't teach if you can't control your classroom or understand what these children have gone through, have trauma-informed practice and the bias that exists. You will not be able to help these children achieve if you don't have a relationship with them and build that trust, not only with them, but with their families. Because if you have built a relationship with a family, with a parent, and something happens, they have your back if Johnny's not doing something. So really taking the time to build those partnerships. So that's one of the things is that, as Delise said, that we have to really think about meaningful professional development for our instructors, the people who are delivering the instruction, for the leaders of the principals in those buildings, for everyone in the building, because family engagement is not one person's job, it's everybody's job.
Thank you.
I know you said one more, just because I have a captive audience. But, because parent engagement is not for the weak and the weary. You don't see it, but we really got on armor up here. It's because it's really hard work, and that's why probably a lot of people shy away from it. But I am so begging you, do not shy away. Because that lip service thing that Michele talked about that was up on the screen, it said, I bet you all of you at one point have said, you know, the parents are the children's first educator. They're the first teacher. Well, act like it. How can you not have a conversation with the parents and families about what's best for those kids? So either stop saying that or go have a conversation with the parents and families. Thank you.
So, Michele, I wanted to just ask you about training. There's a lot of training to prepare people for doing the important work of supporting parents in schools, or there isn't a lot. So what's happening on that front?
So nationally, there has been, I talked a little bit earlier about the District Leaders Network for Family and Community Engagement. And you know, it really came out of this whole notion. They brought us together and said, so what do you need to do your job better? Well, where do we go for professional development? This is a new position. There's no way that you can go and get a degree that's going to prepare you for this in terms of the content and the skills. And although skills are transferable, what we said was we need a place where we can come, where we can share, where we can come and just share our frustrations, talk about the challenges, problem solve collectively, learn from each other. And so the District Leaders Network was started. And so we bring district leaders from around the country together for two major events, a pre-conference at the national conference where we really talk about the burning issues around family engagement and do some problem solving, and we do the speed dating, where districts around the country that are doing really good work, we have a time for everybody to sit and listen to them and go around the room and choose who they want to hear from, so that sharing piece. And the second thing we do is a learning lab. And so every year in the fall, we take district leaders to a district to visit one of their colleagues in their district to really learn how that district is doing the work of family engagement. And so those are the two major pieces. And then we have forums and peer-to-peer connections. There's also some other ways that district leaders are really building their capacity. The parent-teacher home visit project, they come and they will do training with staff around these home visits to really make sure they're relational. Those home visits are not going into the home, you know, looking around saying, I'm the teacher, this is my expectations. It is really about going in and asking two questions. What are your hopes and dreams for your child? And what are your expectations of me as your child's teacher? And building that relationship and honoring parents as that first teacher and as that expert on their child.
Thank you. So now we'll just do a lightning round. Everyone has about 30 seconds to answer this question. How do you know you're having an impact with your work? Would you like to start with that?
I think I covered that a little bit, but I would just add, you really know that you're making a difference when people don't necessarily know who you are as a leader in your district. The parents don't know and they don't care, but they're able to say, I want to be involved and I know how. I want to be engaged. And if I can't in the building or at the school, I know my options for being engaged for my child's success at home or in my community.
We've connected our family engagement practices to our student information system and to our early warning index. So I can tell you exactly who we're reaching and who we're not reaching, and whether or not we are connecting with our most vulnerable kids and families.
Not a lot, but my simple one is when people who don't traditionally come to me are coming to me. So whether it's curriculum folks or building principals or teachers saying, please help us with parent engagement. It's one thing for me to go and try to force it on them. It's a whole different ball game when they are coming to me because I know they have a level of readiness. That's when I know it's beginning to work.
In our district, we've been doing academic parent-teacher teams for 3 years. We started with 4 schools, and now we're up to 10. When we have teachers begging for professional development on how to engage their families around the instructional core, that's when I know it's working. When the teachers are asking for the professional development so they can partner better with their families.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Michele.
Oh, and for me, it's when I run into those Michelles of the world and they share their story with me and they've become parent leaders, and they have become actively involved, that they understand how to partner and instead of fight with the school.
Great. Thank you all so much. Well, I'm turning the program over to Delisa at this point to introduce the next part.
So parent voice is a huge part of family engagement. If we're not really listening, we're not working on family engagement. So we have a video of some parent voice, and these aren't unlike families in your own community. So they're going to tell us what they need.
I think it's very important for me to understand what's going on in school so I can have some type of ideas how can I help my daughter with her homework and prepare her for her future.
Con más comunicación, ofrecer programas de cómo nosotros poder ayudar a nuestros hijos en la casa para que les ayude en la escuela. Desde ahorita mi hija está en middle school, ¿cómo podemos ayudarla a elegir lo que quiere para el futuro?
Pues en las reuniones que nos solicitan, pues tener más interpretación directa con el maestro para ver cómo va el mejoramiento de los hijos y el comportamiento.
I think they have partnered with me on all these workshops that they have done. I've tried to go to every workshop that there is with parenting and growth or skills with learning from math to now this social and emotional learning.
El idioma, que hay personas que hablan español y me dan la confianza de poder preguntar y me ayudan con la comunicación con los maestros, que a veces ese es el problema.
Well, every time I come in, it's like good morning, and everybody says good morning, and I have been a volunteer, so that makes it a lot easier that you get to know faces and they get to know you.
De repente el sistema escolar, uno no lo entiende. Cómo se maneja el sistema para que el niño aprenda a los grados. Como que me gustaría más orientación a los padres para poder ayudar a los hijos.
En materias específicas.
En materias específicas.
El adaptarse a las escuelas. Fue uno de los problemas que tuve con mi hija, el adaptarse a la nueva escuela y prácticamente a 2 años y se va a tener que tener otra vez ese proceso. Sobre las ayudas que hay en las escuelas, sobre la ayuda académica también, o sea, cómo pueden avanzar en las clases, sobre carreras, porque mi hija ahorita dice, quiero hacer algo, pero es que no sé en qué se basa. ¿Qué es lo que tengo que hacer? Yo quiero robótica, pero no sé qué es lo que tengo que hacer. ¿Dónde está eso? ¿Qué tengo que estudiar? Entonces son cosas que yo no le puedo ayudar.
Just to learn how our system on school is right now and how are we doing as a parents too with our kids, and pretty much know how they are doing it on the school, how the schools are doing to teach my kid, all the classes and everything.
Working together as a teacher and as a parent, coming together for the benefit of the child. If not having enough time would be the issue, then scheduling maybe a time with them. I know our teachers have made time for us, and it doesn't have to be half an hour. It could be 10 minutes and going over what they're doing in class. And that helps us as parents saying, okay, we're on the right track. We're doing the best that we can together, coming together. So just sending that extra sheet of paper letting me know, oh, he needs his sight words learned, or he needs to practice this, or for example, for us is rhyming words. I know the teacher is really busy and they do get to see those at school, but we also implement them at home. So I know my kindergarten is getting better, because I know exactly I'm going hand in hand with the teacher.
Más bien los padres tenemos que responder a las invitaciones de la escuela, porque sí hay invitaciones y hay muy poca respuesta de los padres, como en esta conferencia que está ahorita. ¿cuántos padres de familia no somos y cuántos asistimos?
Pues yo creo que ya lo está haciendo, que son las asesorías en español, clases en español, pero yo creo que sí hace falta un poquito más de enfoque en qué es lo que están haciendo los papás en casa.
Family engagement is about those transformational moments. And what we want you to do is to think about how, when you go back to your district, you will look at every encounter with a family as the potential for a transformational moment.
We ask you to commit money, time, and resources to developing your teachers so that they can build their capacity to build stronger partnerships with families around the instructional core.
And think about how you can make family engagement a lever that promotes equity and student achievement.
Okay, stand up. Do like this. This is for Judy, because that takes a couple of those seconds for that 60 minutes you're supposed to do something. Okay? So we want to know, what are you going to do? And not later, but now. What are you going to do to make a difference in parent engagement when you go home? So think about it. Delisa?
So when I give you instructions, you're going to take 10 steps. You're going to find somebody that you haven't talked to today, somebody that you don't know, and you're going to engage in a 3-minute conversation with that person, and you're going to talk about what's something new that you can commit to back in your community, in your business, in your home. What's something you can do to lift up the field of family engagement? All right, go find that person.
They're both remember their lifeline. This is a hotline.
Are you guys close?
I can. Do you want me to do that? Michele? Who has the mic? Patricia and... Do we have a moment to report out? Patricia and Treese Moore? And Patricia, do you have your mics? Patricia, I see your hand. What have you been hearing over there? Is her mic on?
I have a couple that I just know they are so excited about sharing their conversation. I know everybody is, but I know you're getting ready to be real quiet so you can hear this. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Terry, and we were just discussing about the families, and at my particular school, I'm in Baltimore City, I'm a principal. We have a very small PTO, and often what we do is when they come through the door, we complain or look at them and we think about the fact that they have the rollers and the hair and their slippers on and the pajamas, but they didn't really probably have a role model to help them. We need to step back and we need to think they are coming in the school. They do care about their child or children, and we need to see what we can do to bridge that gap and to help them.
Excellent. And I have a school board member. Yes. Will you introduce yourself and tell us your idea?
So I'm Elizabeth Alba, and I serve on the school board, and a lot of times at our school board meetings we have one person in the audience unless it's a hot topic. And we recently had a full house when we were changing some curriculum. I looked out into the audience and I saw a lot of people, because it's a small town and I grew up there, and a lot of them didn't have children in the district anymore. And what it said to me is our community still cares about what's going on when it's a hot topic, and we need to reach out to them as well as the parents, because sometimes it's grandparents, sometimes it's uncle, aunt, and maybe it's just somebody that's a former educator, retired, and they want to have a voice, and we don't always include them.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to give a big thanks to all of our leaders here today. If ever we could give a round of applause to our leaders. That's Patricia, Michele, Tracy, Delisa. Have I left anyone else?
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much for our parent engagement experts. Absolutely, go on.
Thank you so much for your time and attention. I can look at you and tell that you're getting ready to go back to where you came from and do some awesome stuff with parent engagement, right?
Right.
So guess what? We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing.
Okay, we're ready for our reception, are we? I see. Thank you for getting us to tonight's reception. The next 2 hours or so will be an integral part of your leadership experience, connecting with your fellow participants in the Chinese ballroom, which is located directly behind you through there. It'll be around out these side doors, and right down the hall you'll see signage for your reception. This is your chance, for those of you on the live stream, to tell your boss that you need to be coming to Leaders to Learn From in 2019. We hope to see you all here next year. For those of you who are in the room, we will be starting that reception. Well, it's basically begun. You'll listen for the music. It'll be following right after Sister Sledge. Anyway, then again tomorrow morning, we'll be back in the Grand Ballroom here at the Mayflower Hotel in downtown Washington, D.C. at 7 a.m. Keynote with John Hattie at 8 a.m. Until then, we'll see you soon right here. Thanks so much, everybody. Enjoy your evening.